feeling refreshed after a week off? I mean, you guys, Coach said a few weeks ago that this bye week came a little bit later than what you guys considered ideal. So how badly did you need some time to rest?
I was about to say, from the defensive standpoint, we actually really needed it. We actually ended up getting Quinn back and Brett back, and we ended up losing Richie, but we ended up really getting a lot of guys back. D-line healthy, all the linebackers, everybody in the secondary pretty good. So we actually took advantage of it.
We went almost 3 months with no break at all, so I definitely think this came at an opportune time to let some of the guys really just heal up and recover. So
a lot of big wins in the last couple of years. The Charleston Southern game is the one that kind of got away from you guys last year. How has that stuck with you, and do you think about that this week much?
Well, I did. Like you said, in the previous year, we have actually been winning against Charleston Southern, and last year they came in and upset us. So it's kind of been on our mind that those guys upset us last year.
I think they just came in and hit us in the mouth from play one and came after us, and we didn't come out ready to fight. And I'm looking forward to playing them again this year and trying to get some revenge.
From a defensive perspective, going into a game, facing off against a team with the kind of offense that they run, which of course you don't see very often, having a bye week going into a game like that, how much does that help from defense?
That actually gives us a lot of more reps to get a look at their offense. So we got actually a lot of looks at their offense this past week. And like I said, our ones and our twos, we get a lot of reps, and I just think it was real good for us. It was definitely an advantage for us.
There's some new personnel, new quarterback, different running backs. How different do they look from what you saw last season?
They're actually the same guys. They got their whole backfield back. They bring in a couple of young guys in to help them out. But they basically have their whole offense back, and we have our whole defense back, so we're looking to bump heads with those guys pretty good this weekend.
Kevin, these guys are one of the top teams in the country in defensive third down conversions, only giving up about 27%. What do you see on film that makes them so special in third down?
First of all, they're a really good defensive team from the get-go. But third down, they tend to blitz a lot more than they do on first and second down, so I definitely think that helps them. And they're just an experienced group of guys, and when they're back against the wall, they know how to fight back. So
7 games in, 5 of them on the road. How excited are you for homecoming? I mean, it's a big home game for you guys, right?
Yeah.
it's been a while since we had a home game, so I know the whole team's looking forward to it, and just looking forward to being able to play in front of more of our fans than we do on the away games.
It's a great experience, man, because we've been on the road, for, like you said, for 5 weeks straight. I don't know too many teams that have actually been successful playing 5 games on the road this year.
In preparation, do you go back and watch tape of last year's game, or is it more focused on what they're doing this year?
From a defensive standpoint, we did watch a little bit. We didn't focus on the bad, but we focused on what we need to make sure we get correct this year. And we're going to throw a lot of different things at those guys from a defensive standpoint.
Offensively, we've watched a lot of the game from last year, actually, as well as the games from this year, but just showing us and reminding us of what we need to do different as opposed to last year when they came out swinging.
I think, we're certainly going to have our work cut out for us. I think some of their stats, by the way, are pretty interesting. If you look at their special teams, they've been very effective. They're aggressive coming after kicks, for example. They blocked the kick for a touchdown against Vandy. They're always putting pressure on the punter or the field goal guy. They have returned punts for touchdowns this year. I think they've returned a kickoff as well for touchdowns. Their punt return and their kickoff return guys are amongst the leaders in the country. Excuse me, are amongst leaders in the country. From an offensive perspective, they've always done a really good job in terms of being able to move the ball on the ground. And what sneaks up on you a little bit is their passing efficiency. Like the quarterback rating also is about 160. The passing efficiency is one of the best in the country. And the reason for that is they're so effective with their ground game. People start to overplay that. They cheat a little bit. They get out. They're not as disciplined as they need to be. They don't pay attention to the reads, and then they begin the same action, but this time it's a play action pass, and they burn you. So their efficiency on their pass game, especially off of play action, has been very, very good. Clearly, they do a good job moving the ball. They're national leaders in a number of areas in offense as well. And then when you take a look at what they do on defense with regards to the game the other day. By the way, these stats are a couple weeks old, but they only would have improved. Number 12 total defense in the country. Number 5 passing yards allowed in the country. Number 19 scoring defense in the country. Number 15 turnover margin in the country. Number 15 third down conversions in the country. They will only improve those stats. They like to mix things up on defense. They tend to be very, very aggressive up front. They'll disguise a lot of stuff. They'll show you blitz, come out of it. They'll act like they're in coverage and they'll blitz. They'll show pressure from one side and come from the other. They'll mix up their coverages on you. The guys up front are physical and wind up getting to the ball pretty well. They did a good job against Presbyterian. They should have beaten Vandy. I think that was pretty evident. They lose by 1 point against an SEC team, and they outgained them by about 120 yards. They should have definitely beaten them. The other team that beat us a year ago, that has no impact on what's going on now, but they also beat us a year ago. They're a good football team with their two very painful, critical losses. I'm sure that they feel they're going to feel very strongly about. In order to kind of salvage the season, they're going to have to come up here, going to beat us. I have no doubt that this is their comeback. We're going to turn things around. We've beaten these guys before. We got to beat them again. This is a must game. I have no doubt that they'll be ready to play. I expect us ready to play.
Coach, were you surprised by the outcome of last week's game with them, with Presbyterian, where they only scored 3 points in that entire game and lost 7-3? Was that one of the games you look at and said, wow, that's an interesting outcome there?
I was surprised at that. Yeah, I thought they would have been more prolific from an offensive perspective against them. Clearly, they did a great job on defense. And but you got to give, we're talking about Charleston Southern, but you got to give Presbyterian some credit. Nobody has shut down Charleston Southern the way Presbyterian did shut them down. And I didn't expect that to happen that way, but hats off to Presbyterian for getting the job done. They wanted to do a good job. You watch the game. They were physical. They were disciplined. They weren't out of position very often. They did a good job in terms of how they played option, and they deserve a real attaboy for the type of job that they did.
Looking at that film, what can you take out of that film, watching that game, that maybe could help your football team this weekend against them?
I think what I respected the most in terms of what Presbyterian did on defense was their discipline. When option came to one side, people that needed to play pass were playing pass, but the people that had to play option were doing it incredibly effectively. They were doing it very, very well. On the backside, they were aware of the fact that when option comes to one side, the only thing, and Booby, pay attention to this, the only thing that you got to worry about on the backside, in order of priority, option will run this way or action this way. The backside, you have 3 priorities, and that's it. No other response. You got pass, you've got naked, quarterback that just pass, but that could become pass, run, or reverse. That's it. You got to clear those things. Once you clear those things, you're free to help out on the front side. But you got to play that first. And it's unbelievable how many times action this way and the backside ignores what their responsibility to take off. Same thing, by the way, in things like kickoff or punt coverage. They hurt us last year on a kickoff return because our backside collapsed inside to go for the ball, but that's not their responsibility. Their responsibility is literally check, reverse, or potential threats or crazy plays to their side. Once you clear that, you go to the ball. That's a matter of discipline. I think Presbyterian did a very good job of that. Their kids were disciplined, and they got to the ball. They hit well, they tackled well, they shed blocks well. When a guy was going to cut them, they were paying attention to the guy who was going to cut them, and they used their hands to keep the cutter away from their body. So that's what I was impressed with.
What stands out to you about last year's game that is relevant and applicable to this meeting?
There isn't much relevant about last year's game other than, we played poorly and they beat us in all 3 phases of the game. They beat us in special teams last year, they beat us offensively, especially in the first half, and they beat us defensively. And they beat it. We weren't able to stop them. So we clearly can't play like we did last year. By the same token, this year's defense is not last year's defense. This is not the same team as a year ago on defense. So it really isn't any other relevancy other than, look what happened a year ago, we can't play like that again. It happens to be the same team.
what's the health status of your defense, having a week off and getting ready for a very versatile offense?
I think there are still some mistakes. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that having the week off always helps. Most of our guys are healthy, but over the span of the season, I mean, the guys were out there almost 3 months. So to simply be able to take a couple of days off gives you a little bit of break physically, but it gives you more of a break mentally. I'd say the people that needed a break more than the players are probably the coaches, because the coaches haven't had a day off in like 74 days. So for them to be able to get 2 days where they didn't have to do anything with football, they had a chance to exercise, spend time with their family, sleep late, relax, go to a movie. That may not seem like a big deal, but that's very, very important to do physiologically and mentally at this time of the season. So I was delighted with that. What I'm seeing right now, at least as far as our defense goes, is that I think there are things that we are doing very well, much better, or we're much better at doing certain things than, let's say, where we were a year ago. But there are some things, because we haven't been doing them that much, we still have some breakdowns on. So we've got 2 full practices yet, and the things that Mike directed to our staff was, if there are still things as of today that we are having problems with, it gets eliminated totally from the game plan. And let's not worry about it. And the things that we're pretty good at, let's make sure we polish that and make sure our guys understand the reads and stay disciplined.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe earlier somebody said something about Quinn was back. Was there an issue with him with regards to injuries? What's the status on him?
He was a little banged up and sore going into 2 weeks ago game, so we held him out of that game. I think if we had to, I think he could have played, but we held him out of that. Brett Johnson really wasn't ready to go, so it was easy to hold him out of that. But both Brett and Quinn are ready to go this week.
How much does it help when you're going into a game against a team that runs the triple option, which of course is something that you don't face a ton? How much does it help to have a bye week before that and maybe kind of get some additional reps in?
I don't think there's any question, Joe, that helps. Conan, I don't think there's any question that helps. I think in terms of, but remember, we did this a little bit differently because we opened up against a team that played, had the triple option. We practiced the triple option 15 minutes every day during spring, every day during preseason. So that's an additional, probably, 35 practices where we spent 15 minutes a day on it. So we're much more familiar today than, let's say, what we would have been going into last season. Going into last season, we had to get rid of we had to prepare for a lot of teams that had nothing to do with the triple option well before we got to Charleston Southern. So by the time we got to Charleston Southern, we really only had that week to prepare. That didn't help us. Because we didn't fare well in that game, we're not going to let that lack of preparation help us again. And even though you may not have time that week, frankly, you can organize your time better over the span of the season, over the span of the spring, to better accomplish that. We've done that.
Coaches, obviously homecoming, how do you keep your team focused on the prize? Because clearly that's one of the biggest things for homecoming for any coach. With all the festivities going on, it's not football related.
That's a little less of a problem, I think, for us because of kind of the attitude we have for our guys, and I think the sense of maturity that our guys have. I think our guys know, put it this way, we want to have a great homecoming. We want to have family in town. We want to have friends in town. We want to have a packed stadium. Hopefully Myrtle Beach shows up. Hopefully all the student body is here. But our guys know that our job is what we're doing on game day. People coming in and watch us play. And we've got to be able to take care of that. So there's no reason at all why we can't enjoy ourselves, but just keep that in balance and make sure that we are prepared to play. That's our #1 priority. Our guys know that, and I expect our guys to live up to that responsibility.
What stands out to you about their offensive personnel, the guys they have in the backfield this year?
Well, they have a number of guys that did a good job for them last year and are back last year. 20, they were the running back Rays. He was all conference last year. He was a preseason all conference pick. The other guys are both good receivers as well as runners. The quarterback, while he's new this year, he's a very experienced quarterback. When he started, was at UAB for a couple of years. He was an all conference freshman for them, and so he's a good football player. He throws the ball well. He runs well. And the line's got a lot of experience. So I think their offense across the board is you know, it was a talented group of guys that understand their jobs pretty well, and they go after it, and they execute pretty well.